As this is a course in systems archetypes, probably the best place to begin is to define what an archetype actually is. An archetype is a well-defined structure that has a high frequency of recurrence on an ongoing basis. It's a structure, it's a set of relationships that you will see over and over and over again. We've probably talked before about the growth structure and the goal-seeking structure. The two of them are the foundation of everything else, and they're archetypes, and we'll talk about them in more detail very shortly. So the thing is, it's a well-defined structure that has a very characteristic pattern of behavior, so that when you see this pattern of behavior, you have a high likelihood that you know what the structure is that created this pattern of behavior. I mean, this is the typical goal-seeking pattern of behavior, and this is exponential growth. And we'll talk later about what produces these characteristic patterns of behavior. But the idea is that if you know the structure, you know how it's going to behave. If you run across this behavior pattern, you have a sense of what the structure was that created it. Now, you can't be absolutely certain that what the structure is, but at least it gives you a sense of where to look or how to begin the investigation. And the reason that it's beneficial to understand archetypes is because the known archetypes have very well-defined strategies for dealing with them. Strategies that that are well thought out and are known to actually deal with the structure in an appropriate way. So that if you sense this pattern of behavior, you then understand what the structure is, you know how to deal with it without having to sit down and start from scratch to say, okay, here are the relationships and here's the pattern that it develops, and how do we go about dealing with this structure. For a dozen or so systems archetypes that we'll talk about in this course, the strategies for how to deal with them have been worked out in intricate detail and shown repeatedly to deal with the structure in the appropriate way. Now, as to where archetypes came from, Ludwig von Bertalanffy in 1937 proposed that there were fundamental underlying structures which operated across all branches of science. And if one learned these structures, one could actually take a lot of their learning from one discipline to another, because when you moved to a new discipline, you simply had to figure out what the labels were on the archetypes that were interacting, and you would know how the archetypes worked. Now, when I first ran across this, I sort of thought that it was difficult to believe at best. Though after I thought about it for a while, I finally realized that the various and sundry branches of science are a fabrication of man, not nature. So why wouldn't there be a single set of interaction structures which operate across all of nature? We just subdivide it into categorical silos because it makes it easier for us to keep track of, but in the long run probably makes it more difficult for us to really comprehend on a broader sense. So Bertalanffy is considered by most to be the father of modern systems theory. He actually didn't call them archetypes. The term archetypes was popularized by Senge in the fifth discipline, the art and practice of the learning organization, around 1990. So an introduction to systems archetypes, and we'll continue to talk about the various and sundry individual archetypes and the relationship amongst them. And I hope you find this course extremely meaningful and useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.